This is Liam Hendricks, and you're watching Crosstown Crosstalk on the Barroom Network.
Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Every summer in Chicago, the sunshine spotlights the city's spectacular skyline. Its luxurious lakeshore, marvelous monuments, and the over 200 neighborhoods in the city. And it also brings to light two of the greatest sports franchises in the world. On the north side, it's the Cubs. On the south side, it's the White Sox. This is Crosstown Crosstalk.
Hello, and welcome to another very exciting episode of Crosstown Crosstalk, presented by the Barroom Network. My name is Vinnie Parise, and I am so excited to be talking baseball with each and every one of you. It's been an interesting time, no matter what your fanhood is. If you're watching this show, there's a slight chance you are a fan of a Chicago team. I also have a pretty fair following of people who follow the New York Mets, the New York Yankees. There's a little bit of Philadelphia Phillies sprinkled in there from my New Jersey folks. Each and every one of you had a different type of experience when it comes to your 2022 Major League Baseball trading deadline. Before we get to any of that, though, I want to begin the show by honoring a legend. Earlier this week, we lost one of the greatest people to ever use one of these, a microphone, in the history of Major League Baseball. Vin Scully was a radio icon. Vin Scully was a television icon. He's a Dodger icon. He's a baseball icon. He's a sports icon. He is one of the greatest people to ever do that job. He told the story of baseball unlike any person that came before him or after him. Listen, I know in this town of Chicago, we had some greats. Hawk Harrelson, my personal favorite of all time. Harry Carey. Okay, get a little more modern with the Cubs and the White Sox. Len Casper, Jason Benetti. Color commentary, we can go to Steve Stone, Eddie Olczyk. If we want to skip sports like Eddie Olczyk, Pat Foley. Okay, this town has seen outstanding announcing, and nobody comes close in baseball to the great Vin Scully. The Los Angeles Dodgers were able to win one last World Series for him to see in the year of 2020. I'm sure it was one of the more exhilarating moments of the final years of his life. I hope he was able to enjoy watching that great team as much as we were. It was a thrill to watch him. I remember he was in the very first baseball video game that I ever played. It's Vin Scully and Dave Campbell here, ready to call today's game between the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Chicago White Sox. I mean, just legendary moments. Behind the bag, it gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it. That was Vin Scully, okay? A clip from the 80s is stuck in my brain. I wasn't born for another 15 years, okay? And it's stuck in my brain. And it just goes to show how great he was. So everybody watching, I hope everybody was able to enjoy Vin Scully's career as much as I did. I love baseball. I love anything associated with it. And he told the great story for a long time. So Vin Scully, rest in peace. His team, the Los Angeles Dodgers, didn't have the greatest news of all time in terms of the Major League Baseball trading deadline. Their biggest rival, their biggest threat in the National League, maybe. I'm sure there are some New York Mets fans ready to argue that with me, but one of their biggest threats is the San Diego Padres. They have been a playoff team all season long without their best player, Fernando Tatis Jr. He decided to get hurt riding a motorcycle earlier in the offseason and hasn't played yet this season, but everybody knows that when he is on fire, he is one of the very best players in all of Major League Baseball. He is also one of the greatest players in the league right now, but in addition of that, he's one of the faces of the league. He's one of the most exciting. Everybody likes watching Fernando Tatis Jr. And you couple that with Manny Machado, who year after year just puts up MVP case after MVP case. And now they added probably the best hitter in the league, Juan Soto was traded to the San Diego Padres in exchange for a plethora of talent. There's some at the MLB level. There's some at the prospect level. I know Mackenzie Gore is going to Washington, I believe, in the trade, and he's one of the best pitching prospects in the league. I'm very excited to see what Nationals get out of this. I still don't think the Padres paid enough to get Juan Soto. Okay, and I ultimately think that's why the Cubs had as quiet of a trade deadline as they did, because the market suffered because of Juan Soto getting traded to the Padres for what he did. Eric Hosmer blocked being traded out of San Diego in favor of Washington, which ultimately led to them trading Luke Voit instead, which Luke Voit has to be livid that that's the case. They ended up trading Hosmer anyway to avoid any tension in the clubhouse going forward. I'm assuming that's the reason he's with the Boston Red Sox. So Juan Soto to the Padres, one of the biggest trades in Major League Baseball history. I heard a couple people online, a couple people on TV. It might have even been Tim Kirkshin call it the biggest trade since George Herman Babe Ruth was traded for $250,000 from the Boston Red Sox to the New York Yankees to finance a Broadway musical called No No Nanette. It's crazy, though, that a trade like that was able to happen in the modern era. My prediction was that he would stay with the Nats because I didn't think they'd be able to be compensated fairly for a player of that magnitude, but they feel like they have. The rebuild is underway in Washington. And listen, if you're watching this and you're somehow a Washington Nationals fan, and I'm going to try and push this episode out to Washington Nationals fans. I know we got the Great District on Deck crew that I associate myself with from the fan-sided networks. We had one of them on earlier in the season to talk Nationals baseball. They have lost in the last 2 years, and this is since winning the World Series. It's hard for me to feel bad for any team that won the World Series within the last 10 years because, I wish. They've lost Max Scherzer, Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, Juan Soto, and Anthony Rendon. That is a core that would win the World Series. Well, they did win the World Series, minus Harper. I guess Harper left before the World Series, but it is just an outstanding core, and all of them are gone. Strasburg with the injuries and all that. It's just an interesting time in Washington. I hope they are able to get it together going forward. It can't be easy to explain that to a fan base, but now Juan Soto's on the Daddies, and they're one of the most exciting teams in the league. And they have a big series coming up with with the Los Angeles Dodgers this weekend. Hopefully they are able to put on a show and entertain us all. I believe they will. As for our teams here in Chicago, really didn't do what everybody thought they were going to do. We'll start off with the Chicago White Sox. The day before the deadline, Monday night, they traded Reese McGuire to the Boston Red Sox in exchange for Jake Diekman. Jake Diekman is a mid-30s aged reliever who pitches from the left side of the mound. That is obviously something the White Sox lack since Aaron Bummer is out until at least September and Garrett Crochet is out for the rest of the season. Those are probably the two best White Sox relievers not named Liam Hendriks, and they're both out. And they're both lefties, so the White Sox lefty bullpen, kind of thing, it was basically down to Tanner Banks, and they weren't using Bennett Sosa anymore. So, it was Tanner Banks, and they needed a lefty, and they went out and got Diekman. So now you have Diekman and Banks from the left-handed side. You have Joe Kelly, Liam Hendriks, Kendall Graveman, Jose Ruiz, and I feel like I'm missing a big one from the right side for the White Sox. Oh, Reynaldo Lopez, who's injured, but he'll be back probably pretty soon. And it sounds like a formidable bullpen. If Kelly, Hendricks, and Graveman can pitch to their potential, like World Series champion experience level potential, then I think the White Sox bullpen will be fine. And then you're running a rotation of Lucas Giolito, Dylan Cease, Lance Lynn, Michael Kopech, and Johnny Cueto. It's hard to poo-poo on the White Sox pitching staff right now. I don't think it's, their biggest flaw by any means. I was surprised because that was the only move that they made. They did not add a bat. They didn't add another starter. They weren't even really in any rumors. There was a couple rumors that they were in on Ohtani, and I know the package they offered for Ohtani. I'm not allowed to say it. I don't want to ruin my relationship with my source or anything, but I can confirm it was hefty. Okay, and they were in on him. They always seem to have a seat at the table and then miss. I don't fault them for the Ohtani one, but because it's in a long line of things they messed up on, it kind of makes it just a little bit more frustrating. Like, don't leak it at all. Like, we know, like, the people who know they were in on Ohtani. You don't got to embarrass yourself by admitting you were in on another person and failed to get the deal done. And there were rumors all day long. I was told they were in on Bellinger. I was allowed to say that. Cody Bellinger is or was one of the best hitters in the league, a left-handed hitter that has done damage, but he's been a little cold lately. The Dodgers, if they would have landed Soto, probably would have traded Bellinger to the White Sox. And that just didn't happen. And now the White Sox, they're rolling into the second half of the season, hoping to get Robert healthy, hoping to see Eloy Jimenez stay hot. He's been one of the hottest bats in the league. I got a piece coming up on Southside Showdown tomorrow for that. August Abreu is fully here, hit a big 3-run home run today. We all know how good he is once that calendar month flips into August. As far as the rest of the team, Moncada's been well. So hopefully the offense can finally start really getting it going and they're able to win a couple in a row, catch Minnesota, who made big deals. I mean, Minnesota added 3 bullpen arms that are outstanding. It was 2 bullpen arms and a starter for Minnesota. They got better as a team. So the White Sox are going to have to contend with that. And hopefully they're able to take advantage of the weak schedule portion that they are currently in. And so far, so good, kind of. If they hang on and win this, which you'll know the result by the time you're listening to this on Thursday afternoon, but it'd be nice to go into the weekend series against the Texas Rangers, 2 games over 500 and within 2 games of the American League Central top spot, and especially 1.5 games within the American League wild card. Because, hey, you make the playoffs, just get into the dance. We'll see what happens. If everybody's healthy and playing to their potential, the White Sox could be like a World Series team, but so far this season, they haven't really done that. That's all for them, basically. Big series with the Texas Rangers coming up before our next show. And then, of course, on Monday night, you could hear us talk about the White Sox on the South Burbs Hitman podcast. Following that, though, the White Sox, before our next show, will have another series with the Kansas City Royals. So they're finishing their series with the Royals this week. Then they go to Globe Life to play the Texas Rangers in Arlington, and then, of course, over to Kansas City to play the Royals on the road. You're going to get your fair share of Lucas Giolito, Dylan Cease, Lance Lynn again, Kopech, and Cueto. All those guys are going to go, and hopefully they go strong. It would be nice if the White Sox bats just keep it going, keep it moving, get back yourself into the race, and we'll see what happens from there. One thing I wanted to point out is on Saturday night, the White Sox will face Dane Dunning, who was their prospect traded for Lance Lynn. No Lance Lynn started on Wednesday for the White Sox, so he won't face the guy he was traded for. But Michael Kopech will go for the White Sox in that game, and I think it's a fun little way to watch an old White Sox prospect face a current White Sox prospect, if you consider Kopech a prospect anymore. Probably not. I would consider him a full-time participant in the rotation. But that's just where the team is at right now. It was kind of an abysmal deadline. They made me feel better, though, the way they played that night. And you start to wonder a little bit, like, okay, the White Sox had a terrible trade deadline. They did next to nothing. Does that motivate the guys in the locker room, though? Like, hey, they believe in us. Okay, they didn't feel the need to go out and add. Maybe that's just me being naive, but the results speak for themselves since the trade deadline ended. And we'll see if they're able to carry that momentum going against teams that they should beat no matter what. Speaking of not doing anything at the trade deadline, the Chicago Cubs, they traded 4 relievers, okay? And I think getting something for Efros, which Efros, he had years of control. People were mad that the Cubs traded him. Listen, he's 28 years old, okay? He's not like a young buck prospect. It's like being obsessed with Frank Schwindel and Patrick Wisdom. How's that working out, guys? Okay, there's a reason they made it to 30 without, becoming elite. It's a little different with pitchers. Sometimes it takes a little extra time. As long as your command and your velo is up, you'll be able to have success, and that's what's happening with Efros. But, the Yankees need him more right now, and it's just one of those things, like the prospect coming back for him has like a high ceiling as a starter, and I think that is definitely something that is incredibly more valuable to the White Sox to the Cubs as they go forward. I'm looking right now for the name of the player going back to the Cubs in exchange for Efros. Just give me a second here. I'm going to pull it up any second. Scott Efros was traded to the New York Yankees in exchange. It's their number 7 prospect. Now I'm not finding his name. Either way, though, it's going to be a move that ends up looking better for them as the time goes on. You'd rather the young prospect with the high ceiling as a starter than the reliever with the ceiling of what he's doing right now, which is awesome. And the Yankees are going to love to have him. He throws the crazy sidearm motion. It's going to be a different look out of the Yankees bullpen. There are so many reasons for each team to, make that trade and see what they can do going forward. And then, of course, they traded 2 other relievers after that, after trading one before him for a total of 4, and got some nice prospects for them. But the big story from the Cubs is the fact that they did not trade either Ian Happ or Wilson Contreras. Okay, it's a little bit easier to explain for Ian Happ, right? He is available next season because his contract is up after next season. The reason people thought they were going to trade for him this year is because he kind of had an up and down start to his career. And this year he was having a career year after finishing 2021 really strong. And I mean, this guy was an all-star. If you're on the National League All-Stars, even if you're not in the starting lineup, it means you're a very good player. They see you amongst the best in the league. And that's exactly what happened with Happ. But, one of 2 things is going to happen. They're either going to sign him to an extension once the season is over, or he'll play for the Cubs next season and they'll trade him at next year's deadline. If he makes it to next year's deadline and the Cubs are 19 games under 500 like they are right now, or however many games it is, you can bet your bottom dollar that Ian Happ is going. It'll be even more of a lock than it felt like this year. Obviously, you can't call it a lock because it didn't happen. But Wilson Contreras, that's one that I have a hard time explaining to Cubs fans, because Wilson Contreras' contract is up after this season. Now, the Cubs can extend him. And if they extend him, that means they agree that the idea of keeping an aging superstar catcher while rebuilding was a good idea. Okay, that's fine. You want to keep Wilson Contreras on your team? Maybe move him to left field, maybe play some first base. The designated hitter is in the National League to stay now. That's good news for the Cubs. All right, we'll see what happens. But if they don't agree to an extension, and I kind of don't think they're going to because they haven't had conversations about it since 2017. I mean, we're not talking 2020, guys. We're talking 2017. Where were you in 2017? Okay, I was attending the NHL draft and the Devils picked Nico Hischier. Like, it's been a long time. And that's the year the Bears drafted Trubisky. Like, we're on to Justin Fields now. Like, that's how long ago it's been since Wilson Contreras and the Cubs had contract negotiations. The other option is to offer him a qualifying offer, and he would get paid $20 million for the 2023 season if he were to accept. Wilson Contreras might believe he can get a little bit more than that per year on the free agent market and not have to go through the trade bait thing anymore like he would if he were to sign his qualifying offer. If he does not accept, the Cubs will be handed a compensatory draft pick. It will be in between rounds 1 and 2, as you probably know. And it will be the Cubs admitting that a draft pick was worth Wilson Contreras more than what they could have gotten for him on the trade market this year. It's an interesting move. It's a move I don't agree with. If I were a Cubs fan, I would be upset that they did not move Contreras, unless they sign him to a long-term deal and he proves himself to be worth it for the duration of the contract. But as of right now, I don't think Cubs fans are feeling too good about it. The worst part about it is the way they treated him. Okay, you haven't had negotiations with him since 2017. That's a slap in the face in its own right. He's been probably the best catcher in the National League for a better part of the last 6 years. And you don't negotiate with that guy. Okay, whatever floats your boat. There was COVID. There was the transition from Theo Epstein to Jed Hoyer as the full-time person in charge of the roster. Whatever. Sometimes that kind of stuff happens. The years go by quickly. But then you let him go the entire last week and a half. giving hugs to Ian Happ and David Ross and crying walking around Wrigley Field, and the farewell tour that they basically put on for him just to keep him, that's a little weird. Okay? Like, the Cubs let that get a little out of hand. If I were Jed Hoyer and you knew that this was a possibility, that you were going to keep him, and it had to have been a possibility all this time, right? They didn't just decide in the last 24 hours that they're going to keep Wilson Contreras. Like, it had to have been in the back of their mind that there's a chance he stays. Well, Jed needs to hold a press conference last Wednesday and say, hey, I know all of you think it is a foregone conclusion that Wilson Contreras is getting traded. Guess what? It's not. Okay? We're going to explore all options. Is it a possibility that he gets traded? Yes. Is it a possibility that he doesn't? Also, yes. So stop just assuming that Wilson Contreras is going to be traded. And that would have kept the hugs to a minimum. It would have kept the tears to a minimum. You do the hugs after you get traded. Okay? It was just, I felt bad for Wilson Contreras. He was crying in the locker talking about how tough it is. Well, now you're going to have to make it even tougher on him because he's going to have to deal with this BS again, either in the offseason or again next year if he were to accept the qualifying offer. Okay? So the way the Cubs treated Wilson Contreras over the last week, I don't jive with it. I don't think it's very cool. And we'll see what happens with him going forward. But that's the trade deadline for the two teams in Chicago. Just a complete ineptitude. Okay? Jed Hoyer, even back to Theo Epstein, what the hell is wrong with them? Okay, the Cubs won the World Series in 2016. They didn't dawn on them at all to try to do what they can to keep their guys. You know who's left on the roster? Injured, struggling, aging Kyle Hendricks and Jason Hayward, who hasn't hit above 250 since signing his deal with the Cubs. Okay, that's the guy who gets $180 million from the Ricketts pocketbook because of the decisions made by Jed Hoyer and Theo Epstein. Okay, Eloy Jimenez is on a 9-game hitting streak for the Chicago White Sox. Dylan Cease has an ERA of 2.01. You got Jose Quintana out of that, who pitches for your rival, the St. Louis Cardinals now. Okay, if I was a Cubs fan, I would be pissed. Okay, and that's not even the hater me talking. That's baseball talk right there. Everything I said right there is a fact. There's no opinion behind any of that. That is all a fact. Now you get to watch Jason Hayward get regular at-bats. And listen, I loved the Seiya Suzuki signing. Okay, but like why? Why did you sign Seiya Suzuki to play for your dead-ass ball club? Marcus Stroman. Okay, he was talking about playing for the Giants during spring training this year with the Cubs. I just don't get what that... And if you think I'm going to just pass on the White Sox just to roast the Cubs, stay tuned. It is BS what the Cubs have done in the last 18 months. You let Schwarber go for nothing. Okay, he hit what? 16 home runs in July alone? He's already over 30. I mean, how many players on the Cubs do you have to combine to reach 30 total? At least 5, I would assume. A Schwarber, you let that guy go for nothing. You didn't even extend him a qualifying offer. You said, it's okay, Kyle. You can go leave for nothing and play for another team. And 2 of the 3 teams he's played for since leaving the Cubs were in the National League playing against them. Okay, the way the Cubs treated Kyle Schwarber is an even bigger disgrace than the way that they've treated Anthony Rizzo, Javier Baez, Chris Bryant, and Wilson Contreras. Javier Baez, I kind of get. He kind of sucks. But Chris Bryant, that guy might get a statue. Anthony Rizzo. He signed his 6-year extension with the Cubs in 2012 when they had 100 losses. He stayed loyal to you. He didn't want to be traded during the rebuild. Okay, he saw that thing through. And you repaid him by trading him to the Yankees for 2 prospects instead of discussing extension with him. All right, now let's get to the White Sox, since you all probably just think I'm going to shit on the Cubs the whole time. The White Sox might even be more inept, because you know what they don't have in the last 10 years? A World Series championship. They traded Chris Sale to the Boston Red Sox for Yohan Moncada and Michael Kopech. Great trade. Outstanding trade. Moncada's really heating up lately. He was bum Cata until about June. Then he really started to turn it on. Okay, Michael Kopech, ERA of 3.01. That's outstanding. Okay, Michael Kopech is great. And if you don't think Michael Kopech's great, I don't know what to tell you. I'm sick and tired of the Michael Kopech slander. What else do you want him to do? Just because he doesn't have 10 strikeouts a game like Chris Sale? Michael Kopech has had games like that. Okay, but he's learning how to pitch more than just throw. You don't just get up there and throw 100 and expect to have success, because you know what major league hitters know how to do with it? They know how to hit it to Pluto when you throw 100. Okay, you have to make pitch placement. You have to let your defense back you up, and Michael Kopech is learning how to do that. I like the trade. Jose Quintana. The White Sox absolutely fleeced the freaking Cubs for Jose Quintana. Anybody who tries to argue otherwise is a fool. Okay, Jose Quintana sucks. Or he sucked with the Cubs, having an okay year with the Pirates. We'll see how he does with the Cardinals under the bright lights. Eloy Jimenez has the potential to be a superstar. Dylan Cease is a superstar. Okay, he might win the Cy Young. The only person who could keep him from winning the Cy Young is Justin Verlander, who's going to walk his way into the Hall of Fame regardless of what happens. World Series champion, multiple Cy Youngs, came close to the pitching Triple Crown. Okay, that might be the only guy who could save Cubs fans from watching Dylan Cease win a Cy Young in a White Sox uniform. Okay, so you got that. Adam Eaton. You traded Adam Eaton to the Washington Nationals for Lucas Giolito, Reynaldo Lopez, and Dane Dunning. You trade Dane Dunning to the Texas Rangers for Lance Lynn. Now you have Lance Lynn, Reynaldo Lopez, and Lucas Giolito out of Adam Eaton, who sucked. Okay, he was annoying in the clubhouse. Guys hated him. You got 3 elite prospects like that. One of them you were able to trade for Lynn. Okay. You signed Jose Abreu in free agency internationally in 2014. He came up and took Paul Konerko's spot and has been arguably better than Konerko. Not arguably. Abreu is better than Paul Konerko. Abreu's best 5 years will go down as better than Konerko's 5 best years. And it's not even particularly close. But Konerko hit a grand slam in the World Series, so he will always be significantly more loved. Okay? And Abreu is just an outstanding player, has been for a long time. You drafted Tim Anderson. Okay, that's great. You aren't doing much with that, though, right? Tim Anderson's great. Are we going to sign him? Is he going to be with this team long term? Okay, wonderful. I'm trying to think of what. There's one I'm missing. Oh, Luis Robert, that little guy, their best player probably. Okay, they signed him in international free agency, and it looked amazing. And you have all of this talent brought together, right, via trades and free agency. Oh, you signed Yasmani Grandal, who he's not having the best year ever, but he's still Yasmani freaking Grandal. And if you got a problem with that, look up his entire career. Okay, don't let 2 months influence your opinion on the signing of Yasmani Grandal. And they even made an effort with Dallas Keuchel. He ended up sucking once the sticky stuff came off. But, I mean, they cut him, showed that they were into it. I don't understand how, with all of that talent supplemented, you do nothing at the trade deadline. Last year, you were so active at the trade deadline that you were bad at it. You traded Nick Madrigal and Cody Hoyer to the Cubs. You were in danger of making fun of the Cubs for Eloy Jimenez trade and Dylan Cease. Okay, Madrigal, he's always hurt. He kind of sucks now. Cody Hoyer's out for the year, and they traded Kimbrel for Pollock, who has been okay. Okay, fine. It didn't turn out in hindsight to be as bad as it looked at the end of last season. But that means you go into this year, and the only move you make is by trading your bad backup catcher for a mediocre relief pitcher named Jake Diekman. Rick Hahn, if the White Sox don't make the playoffs this year, I want Rick Hahn gone, I want Kenny Williams gone, and I want Tony La Russa gone. Okay, I thought Rick Hahn was the guy because all of those trades I alluded to at the beginning were all made by Rick Hahn from 2016 to 2018. Okay, you make 3 elite trades like that and get generational players for your franchise like that, and you win 1 playoff game in 4 years since declaring the rebuild over. And the reason you won that playoff game is because Leury Garcia hit one of the most unlikely 3-run home runs that you will ever see. And you had the blackout crowd get the White Sox going. Come on, Rick Hahn. You have to be better than that. Okay? And White Sox fans aren't going to take it. So both White Sox and Cubs, pathetic. Pathetic performances. This is Chicago with Ernie Banks and Harold Baines and Mark Burley. Okay? Some of the greatest players ever have come through this town. And this is how you treat the modern day Chicago baseball fan, with asinine products like that. And you're Jed Hoyer and you get up on your high horse and you tell me that they're not rebuilding? What? The Cubs aren't rebuilding, Jed. You don't want to use that word? What are you think I'm stupid? I mean, you traded Rizzo. You traded Bryant. You traded Baez. You traded Kimbrel. You're not rebuilding? In what world? Rick Hahn, I'm as disappointed as White Sox fans today. I thought we would be able to pull off at least a couple more trades, but you didn't, Rick. And your team is barely over 500 when you came in with World Series expectations. That is just disgusting. Both Chicago teams should get together. Rick Hahn, Jed Hoyer, Kenny Williams. Who's the other idiot in charge of the Cubs? I'm trying to think of his name. The one who is always annoying. Regardless, they should all get together. Ricketts, Reinsdorf. They should all get together and discuss about what a disgrace they've been for this city. Okay, and while they're at it, they should invite George McCaskey and the whole regime over there that's been in charge of like the higher ups. I'm not talking about Ryan Poles. I'm not talking about Matt Eberflus. We'll see about them. But I'm talking like George McCaskey and Ted Phillips. Invite them along too. And while you're at it, invite Rocky Wirtz because he let Stan Bowman ruin the Blackhawks. We'll see what happens with the Bulls. At least they have like kind of a plan. And they should just discuss how much of a disgrace they've been to the city of Chicago in the last 10 years. Okay, the Cubs won the World Series. Yeah. Congratulations on your World Series, Cubs. You should have won 3. Okay? You had Chris Bryant, Baez, Soler, Rizzo, all in their early 20s. All of them. You won 1 World Series. Now I get it, the Dodgers. They beat them in the NLCS twice. Okay, it was a nice 4-year run for the Cubs. It should have been a 10-year run. When Theo Epstein got on that microphone in 2018 and said, our offense is broken, they should have addressed it with something a little bit more than Descalso. Okay? That was your big move to address your broken offense? Nice. Oh, and then the 1 year you bring in Nicholas Castellanos, and that's the year from that point on, you choke the rest of the way. You miss the playoffs in 2019. Something's got to give with these baseball teams, man. They suck. They suck, and then the guys in charge of those teams get on podiums and try to act like they don't suck. And then, once baseball season ends, we get to watch like the 4-12 Bears. Okay, and we keep doing it to ourselves because we can't get brains smart enough to stop doing it. This trade deadline is a disgrace, and I'm being dead serious when I say I want everyone with a decision-making authority on the Chicago White Sox to be fired if they do not make the playoffs come October. And you know what? I might even go a step further. Screw making the playoffs. The AL Central sucks. Okay, I'm looking at the standings right now. The American League Central is a team that consists of the Kansas City Royals, the Detroit Tigers, the Chicago White Sox, the Cleveland Guardians, and the Minnesota Twins. Okay, the Minnesota Twins are 55-49. The Cleveland Guardians are 54-50. The Chicago White Sox are 52. Or they actually just won as I'm saying this. They are now 53-51. 1.5 or 2 games back of the lead in the Central Division. Okay, the Tigers, they suck, 42-64. But, the top 3 teams in the division are mediocre. So if the White Sox make the playoffs, you could still argue that they're just a mediocre team, even if they win the division for the second straight year. Last year, they were not a mediocre team. They were a great team, and they failed in the playoffs, and their best way to fill those holes that were shown heavily in the playoffs were by signing Vince Velasquez and Josh Harrison. Are you kidding me? Sports in this town, man. They just suck. And none of the people in charge seem to have a clue. Now, the White Sox could prove me wrong. They could prove me wrong. Tony La Russa could figure out a way to manage the bullpen well enough in the playoffs to win a series. But okay, let's say you win the division and you get matched up with like the Mariners in the first round, right? Or Boston, and you beat them. Then you go on to play one of the New York Yankees or the Houston Astros. You think you're beating them? You really think you're beating them? The Astros just had an outstanding trade deadline, so did the Yankees. Okay? Let's say you somehow miraculously come out of the American League. You're going to get Juan Soto, Fernando Tatis Jr., and Manny Machado out enough to win the World Series? You're going to be able to go through the Los Angeles Dodgers lineup that has Mookie Betts, Trey Turner, okay, Freddie Freeman, Max Muncy, Bellinger, Will Smith. I mean, the Dodgers lineup is just all-star after all-star after all-star. Their worst player is probably Bellinger, who has a World Series championship and a National League MVP under his belt. Both teams got a long way to go. I don't know what it's going to do to fix these teams. The White Sox have stars. They have to figure out a way to supplement them. And they did not do that. Their farm system's trash. Colson Montgomery is their only top 100 prospect, and he's in the 90s. Montgomery's a great player. I'll never poo-poo on him. He probably will be a Major League Baseball player in short order. A lot of people are very high on Oscar Colas and Yoelqui Cespedes, and a lot of people like Norge Vera. Okay, fine players. They'll be nice. But they didn't have the capital to make one trade. They couldn't even get like a JD Martinez from Boston who was selling. Okay, they couldn't pry Jock Peterson from the Giants, who are freaking, as of right now, 51 and 53. They're 4 games behind the White Sox. You couldn't get Jock Peterson. You couldn't do anything. It's just an inept franchise, in my opinion. And until they prove me otherwise, I will be of that opinion. Are they better than the Cubs? Yeah. Is that kind of funny to me? Like in the moment? Yeah. But in the end, does it really matter? Does being better than the Cubs, is that the World Series for the White Sox? Okay. Is being 8-1 against them in their last 9 games, is that what really gets the White Sox fans going? It gets me going in the moment. When we beat their ass in the regular season Crosstown Classic, sure, that's fun. But does it really matter in the end when you got to play the Yankees or the Astros? The New York Yankees. I heard this stat yesterday. If you're watching the show, comment in the chat to answer. How many prospects do you think the New York Yankees have traded since the start of the 2020 season? I'm giving you a couple seconds to answer. 33. The White Sox wouldn't be caught dead trading 33 prospects. The Yankees say, oh, those prospects are nice. You know, we like prospects, drafting and developing and signing them in international free agency. It's important. But we're the New York Yankees. Okay? We're going to pay our guys. We're going to trade the prospects and get talent. They went out and got Joey Gallo last year. And Joey Gallo sucked for them. He was trash. Couldn't even take advantage of the short porch. The shortest right field fence in the major leagues. For a lefty with power to go there and fail, that says a lot about how much they failed. And guess what happens when they finally realized, okay, we can't deal with this anymore? They got rid of him. It might have costed them some money, but now he's with the Dodgers. The other team that's willing to take a chance on a guy like Joey Gallo, who makes a lot of money and has had a great career but is struggling right now. Okay, let's put the Yankees to the side and the Dodgers to the side because each of them have great TV deals. The Cubs have a great TV deal. Why doesn't the Marquee Network help the Cubs not have to trade everybody? Oh, because they're bad at managing their assets. And so are the White Sox. And fans of both teams should be ashamed right now. White Sox are good on the field lately. We'll see if they're able to keep it up. But if you're the Chicago Cubs, you have to face Jose Quintana tomorrow. With your guy that you paid a lot of money for, Marcus Stroman, on the mound. Marcus Stroman has a significantly worse ERA than Jose Quintana and the exact same record. Think about that. Think about that. So that's the MLB trade deadline from a Chicago point of view. There were a couple other moves made across the league. The Astros were big winners. I thought the Minnesota Twins had a sneaky great trade deadline, which is another insult to the White Sox. but for the most part, it's been nothing short of awful. On a positive note, in terms of fun, the great Aldo Gandia and I were at Bears training camp this morning, and we saw the Chicago Bears play really well on offense, at least for part of it. There were some parts where I was like, it's not really working the way that they want it to, but the offensive line was carrying a lot of time for the quarterbacks to develop time and avoid pressure, and they were able to get the ball downfield a little bit. Justin Fields made a couple bad throws early where we were like, ooh, Justin, let's go, man. You're Justin Fields. Let's go. And then there were a couple dimes that he threw, one in particular where he had to hit Cole Kmet through double defenders in a space about the size of a football, and he hit him. And Cole Kmet is very active in the Chicago Bears offense right now. Okay, and I think that's important because you're in danger of losing Tevin Jenkins. So if Cole Kmet sucks, that's 2 straight second-round picks that you foobarred. Okay? That cannot happen. Well, not including this year's second-round picks. 2020 and 2021, the second-round picks. Not good. You got to be better than that. And listen, Poles isn't going to take any of that blame. He's not tied down to any of these guys, really, except for the ones he drafted within this past year and brought in via free agency within this past year. But I'm excited for this Bear season. Okay, and we're going to do a great job of covering it here at the Barroom Network. And, I'm excited about it. College football. Great episode of Bar Down Hockey yesterday at 2 p.m. We had Pooch from Big Brother. He came in and was dynamite. And then we talked a little hockey, a little pop culture, the rest of the show. And speaking of pop culture, the great science fiction show every week here on the Barroom Network, talking everything news and nerdy. If you want more from me when I'm not on air, you can follow me on Twitter at Vinnie Parise. Read all my stuff at The Windy City and at Southside Showdown, where we will be going over all things trade deadline for the next couple days. The White Sox and the Cubs for the rest of the season. Can the White Sox do what they need to do to get into the playoffs? We will see. But I'm very thrilled. At the end of the day, no matter what, no matter how annoying these teams are, we all have each other to get through it with and enjoy each other and use sports to bring us together. And I hope everybody has an outstanding weekend enjoying all the sports. Make sure you're following the Barroom Network on Twitter, too, so you can keep up with all the shows. I'm at Vinnie Parise on Twitter. As always, to everyone in the chat, to everyone watching, to everyone listening on the audio stream, thank you for listening.
Another happy landing.